Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the second episode of Agony and pew 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 pew. Yes, we are here at our second episode. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I have enjoyed the conversations and the opinions and yeah. Something I forgot to mention was that the link for the voice notes is in the description box. So if you do want to send a voice note, if you do want to grace me with the soft and sultry sounds of your beautiful voice, then by all means share your opinions. The longer the better. I love a good long voice note. And please don't mind the noise in the background. My neighbors are assholes. It's a fucking Monday evening. Why they've decided to blast music, I don't know, but it is what it is. And one monkey is not going to stop this show. So, now that we have all of that out of the way, I do want to say that an update on last week's episode, I had revisited the post to see if there were any updates. People tend to circle back on the post and say, okay, cool, this is what has happened thus far. But instead, I returned to find that the post has been deleted entirely, and that just makes it even more spicy. I mean, come on. What happened? Did the sister come across the post and it just caused so much family drama that they decided to delete the post? Or did they start feeling bad? Did they get the answer they wanted and decided to just scrub it from, the internet? I want to know. But anyway, or, they could have just broken the community guidelines, which I doubt. But yeah, the post has since been deleted, so unfortunately, there will be no updates on that story, and that's quite unfortunate. But anyway, let's get into this week's episode. It is, not that spicy, but I'm gonna give you a warning now. There is, this is about the church, and there's a sort of brief mention on sort of pedophilia, suicide, and other forms of, abuse and child abuse. So I don't delve deep into it. The story doesn't delve deep into it. Either the story doesn't mention those things at all, aside from the context of the story being in the church. But in my response to said person, I do mention the aforementioned trigger warnings. So, you have been warned. But with all that being said, enjoy this week's episode. Bye. Alrighty, let's get into today's Am I the Asshole? So here it says, am I the asshole for leaving the church even though they can't run Sunday service without me? I, 21 female, recently left the church I grew up in. It was a very hard decision and a long journey for me, but I've worked through some of the fears and guilt that was keeping me there. While I was attending church, I was a very integral part of the service. I was the only person in the church who could play music and sing. Every week, I would work with the pastor to pick worship music based on his sermon that week. And then on Sunday, I would essentially run a one-man worship concert. I did this for about 6 years since I was 15. Another important thing to mention is that I'm gay. I've known since high school, and so have my parents. They're surprisingly supportive considering the conservative church we have been attending for as long as I can remember. I've never been in the closet, but I've also never publicly come out on social media or anything. The one thing The one time I brought my girlfriend to church, everyone thought she was just a friend I was trying to convert. 2 weeks ago was my breaking point. Our pastor's sermon was about how the world is becoming more inclusive. It was a long and frankly awful sermon, but the part that finally got me to leave was when he mentioned how all the kids are gay now, and how our whole generation needed to either repent or burn in hell for eternity. Before this happened, I knew that our denomination wasn't exactly welcoming of the LGBTQ plus community, but to hear it so bluntly stated for everyone was, oh, sorry, I read that wrong. But to hear it so bluntly stated in front of everyone was something else, and I couldn't keep living in blissful ignorance. I decided that after the service, I would no longer take part in a church who didn't like people like me. The next week, when he called me to arrange to meet about the church service for that week, I politely explained that I would no longer be taking part or attending his church anymore. I tried to keep it civil, just telling him that our views and theologies didn't align anymore, and for both of our sake, I was leaving. He freaked out, telling me it wasn't fair to him or the rest of the congregation that I would leave so abruptly without making alternate arrangements to replace music. He tried to demand that I come back until he could find someone else, but I declined and then hung up the phone. Since then, I have had countless church members telling me how disappointed they are that church has been cancelled and how I should make things right with God and come back to the church. I have also had the pastor reach back out asking if I would teach guitar to his son if I was really going to leave forever. I have declined. My parents have mentioned that it was rude to leave as abruptly as I did without giving anyone a chance to try and find a replacement. So, am I the asshole for leaving the church with nobody to replace me, essentially making it so that church is cancelled until they find a replacement? That is a tricky one. That really is. Well, it's not really that tricky. It's not that tricky. One, because I don't think you're ever really the asshole when you're choosing yourself or when you're choosing to leave environments that are not welcoming for you, right? That are not inclusive of who you are. They are well within their rights to have their beliefs, and you are well within your rights to choose not to participate. So, in that sense, I would say, no, you're not the asshole, not at all. However, right? I do understand the other side of things, especially because, like, one, I grew up in the church. Hardcore. I was a Sunday school teacher at some point. I was within. I was raised going to church. I don't remember a time in my life where I wasn't going to church as a child, Regardless of where we moved, what our living situation was, my parents would find a church and we would attend, even if we were on like a family road trip. Whatever small town we stopped over in, there's most likely going to be a church and we're going to attend, So yeah, and maybe that's where, my little, my trepidation maybe comes from. It could be all that childhood fear. But yeah, I do think that seeing that you knew what the church was about, right? Or that to some extent, maybe you thought that, you know, people were just tolerating your situation, but they weren't going to like outrightly say that they didn't support you being gay, because I've experienced that a lot at church, right? Where they will quietly judge you for what they think your sin is, right? Be it being promiscuous, be it being gay, whatever, right? Whatever they think your big sin is, um, that they will sort of like, as window dressing, say that we love the sinner but hate the sin, and that that's the little cover-up story for everyone. But in reality, they're not accepting, they're not inclusive. Those people who they say or claim to love, they feel like outcasts, they feel the hate, they feel it all, in spite of what you might tell yourself, right? And to say at some point they do mention that they know that they were quite surprised at the fact that their parents were accepting of them because of the conservative church that they grew up in. So I think that OP had, some sort of an inkling that this space isn't an inclusive space, this space isn't welcoming, and that maybe they need to even do some soul searching into why they felt the need to be in this position as, the singer and, the instrumentals and like, how did they find themselves in that position? And was that their subconscious way of trying to earn favor in the church, right? To be accepted in some way by making themselves indispensable, I don't know. I have thoughts. But long story short, no, they're not the asshole, right? I do not, I don't have fucks with churches that are anti-gay, that come up with these like really wild and ridiculous theories as to why people are gay and, transgender and so on and so forth. And they're just like, ugh, ugh, ugh. Like these churches that think that HIV and AIDS is, God's punishment for, people who are promiscuous and stuff like that, and people who are living in sin, that if you live a pure life that you won't get it. Like, it's just all these weird propagandas, and the thing is, we slowly get indoctrinated into it with small things, like the pastor telling you that you can't watch Dragon Ball Z, or you can't watch, Harry Potter and Pokemon because Pokemon rhymes with demon and whatever. And I'm just like, like, what verse in the Bible? What verse says that I can't watch Pokemon? Yeah, there are verses about like the things that you watch and consume and all of these things, but like, it's just a kid's show. It's just a kid's show. Maybe it isn't. Oh my gosh. And please don't come for me, church people. Please don't. I just mean that sometimes, as a congregation, we tend to just take whatever the pastor says, whatever's said at the pulpit, as, the word of God coming straight from God's mouth. And I don't think that that's the case. That we forget that there's a human up there who might have their own intentions, because, and I'm about to go down a rabbit hole, and it might get a little spicy, but in all my years of going to church, and I've put in years, I don't hear, the pastors preaching about adultery as much as I do hear them talk about, people being gay, right? Pedophilia, oh my gosh. How is it that something that is so ubiquitous around church spaces, right, that it is sort of common knowledge and an assumed fact that every church is hiding, protecting, or is led by a pedophile? Yet somehow we don't talk about these things, right? We don't talk about things that are actually affecting marginalized members of society. How pastors will not go up and talk about racism, right? And how that is wrong. And how previous pastors, how in prior generations or whatever, that in the past people used the Bible to justify incorrect things. Why is that not something that is spoken about? Right? To warn the congregation as well, to teach their congregation to be more critical when listening to pastors, when engaging with the word, when understanding that, okay, this Bible was written in a different time, so when it's referring to slaves, it's because back then they had slaves. It doesn't mean that slavery is okay, right? That maybe in this context, you can sort of change that word for workers or whatever, right? But we're not having these critical conversations about where the Bible addresses certain things like pedophilia and so on and so forth. But you really want to climb down a gay person's throat. Why? Who are they hurting? Who are they hurting? Do pastors talk about parents and how they abuse their children? How to be a good parent? There are all these women's workshops and all these men's workshops and women's ministries and men's ministries, and the children are kind of just shoved aside to the corner and they get Sunday school and they just get the kiddie version of the Bible and that's it. But like, where are the spaces that talk about, how to be a good parent? To give Bible verses on how you should bring up a child. Yes, they say bring up a child, in the word and all of these things. But what exactly does the word say about how you should conduct yourself as a parent? Don't abuse your children. Protect them. All these things. Speak about these things because that's what people need. People are walking away traumatized from the church. People grow up with hardcore Christian parents, but also grow up in homes that are loveless, that are full of abuse, that are judgmental, where they are silenced and they are afraid. These are the things that people could be addressing at the pulpit, but instead they're going after people who are not hurting anyone. The things that I've just mentioned right now, even things like adultery, cheating on your wife, right? Cheating on your partner, all these things, lusting after someone else, breaking your covenant, all these things, they hurt someone else. There's a victim created in these circumstances, but they don't address these things. They don't harp on these topics as much as they do topics about, policing women's bodies and gay people or the LGBTQ plus community. Why? I don't know. You know what? I do, and I don't want to get into it, but the point is, it is really frustrating. It is really frustrating because I know so many people who've been hurt by the church, where all they knew was the church, and they grew up being told that God loves everyone. And then, jiggy, you turn out, okay, everyone, but, and that really hurts. So, again, going back to the story about, leaving the church, bish, no. You're not the asshole. You did what you needed to do. And in some ways, I think leaving the church without a replacement and having church cancelled for a week until they find a replacement might be a good thing. Might give them time to reflect on the effects of their words. That how, they might have discouraged someone else in the congregation from becoming a regular member. That there is a value in having people in the church. That there's a value in bringing people into the fold, being welcoming, being encouraging, being approachable as a church, allowing people to come in as they are, and to use the Bible as a baseline for how to live a good and purposeful life, not how to police other people and make them feel bad and condemn them for whatever quote unquote sins you think they're committing. Just, do you want purpose in your life? Do you want to feel like there's a higher power, a benevolent higher power that is working in your favor to help you live a better life, for you to be the best person that you could be? If so, this is the place for you. You know, this is where we work on having a closer relationship to said higher power, and this is how we work on dealing with the things in our lives that steer us away from the life that we really want. I'm not anti-religion in any way. I think all religions offer the same service if done well, in the sense that it allows people to have a purpose. It allows people to be comforted by a community of like-minded individuals. And it allows people the opportunity to believe in something and to have faith in something greater than themselves, because in essence, that's what we all need as people. We need a greater mission. And some people find it in religion, some people find it in, their life's purpose, some people find it in a myriad of different ways. But that is, that top level of self-actualization, right? That all your other basic needs are met, and you have now become this whole, complete, enlightened version of yourself, and you now are ready and equipped to go out and duplicate or, spread your likeness around. So yeah, I've harped on this topic for way too long. Let's take a little mental break, and then I will get you into the update, because yes, Bish, there's an update. And hopefully we'll have a resolution. Maybe they'll have some information. Oh, I hope they don't go back to the church. I really hope they don't go back to the church, because wow, that would be so heartbreaking. But also I can understand why they would go back, because if you grew up in the church and it's the only thing that you know, you feel so exposed and alone, when you finally leave the church and try and find a different path for yourself. It can be really hard and really isolating, because, all your references and, your way of thinking has been centered around this one thing. So to dismantle it brick by brick can be really jarring and really stressful. So, yeah, let me take a sip of something, delish, clear my throat, clear my mind a little bit, and I'll be back with the update. Okay, so let's power through this update and then wrap up this episode, because come on, let's keep these ones brief. So, first, thank you to everyone who responded to the original post. It has put a ton of things into perspective for me. I was a volunteer for all 6 years that I did the music for the church. I didn't even know that some people got paid to do music for the church. I was under the assumption that everyone did it to volunteer. When I originally started doing music, it was supposed to be a temporary thing until he could find another person. I was told after a few weeks that it was God's calling for me and that I should stick around. I now understand that he just didn't want to find someone else or have to pay someone else to do it. I also don't get sick very often, so the small handful of times that I have been sick in the past few years, the service was just cancelled for the week. Now, the update from this morning. The pastor's son, yes, the same one who I was supposed to teach guitar, is apparently on Reddit. Oh my gosh! He ended up seeing my post, recognizing the situation, and showed it to his dad, who in turn came to our house this morning to talk about it. It was a very unexpected start to my day, especially because I hadn't read any of the responses yet and didn't know if I was in the wrong or not. He tried convincing my parents that Satan was working through me causing me to give into the temptation of homosexuality. He wanted me to start doing weekly one-on-one spiritual sessions with him to work through this temporary slip in faith. He also tried to convince me again that by coming back and giving my gift of music back to God, God would in turn help me work through the sins I am committing. My parents ended up asking him to leave, and him coming to my house to talk about my sexuality has kind of solidified my choice in staying away. My phone has not stopped blowing up with the congregation members trying to get me to go back. It is exhausting to constantly see messages to the point that I am considering changing my phone number. Yes, girl, do it. At this point, I want to smash my guitar on the ground and never touch it again. Part of me still feels guilty about everything, but I think that comes with the fact that I dedicated so many years of my life to the church, especially because I did it so young. I don't know where I stand religion-wise right now. I have a lot more things to work through before I can even start to think about that again. I saw a few people suggest that I go to therapy so I can talk to someone, and I'm starting to look for one. I also might switch from online university classes to in-person at the campus. I take them through so I can get out of town for a bit as I'm working through everything. Thanks again to everyone who responded to the original post. This has been incredibly weird, an incredibly weird situation for me, and I genuinely don't know what I'd be doing right now if I didn't have so many people laying out everything to me straight so I could understand I'm not wrong. I think I might have folded under the pressure and gone back. Oh, this is the end. Okay, wow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I guess that is the joy of the internet, right? That as much as the internet brings us many horrors daily, that it also provides a great space for people to feel heard, to feel seen, and to seek advice that they otherwise wouldn't get if they just looked in their immediate environment. So shout out to the internet. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that you got the evidence and the support that you needed to make that final decision. The pastor, you know what? In the name of being gracious, I will say that the pastor is only acting on the information that they have, right? And on the belief that they are able to allow, the beliefs that they are able to allow in at this time. And that I hope and pray that at some point they have their eyes open to the harm that they are causing by holding this position, especially as a pastor. And then also about wanting to smash the guitar. I am really sorry. That is the weird thing about the church, right? Where they try to co-opt your skills and co-opt your talents. They'll say that like, oh, this is your calling, you know. It's your calling to do this for us. And you know, who doesn't want to have a purpose? Who doesn't want to feel like they've been called to do something, right? So it can feel really manipulative, you know, when they say, oh, you know, remember Jesus and the fish and the loaves, the 2 fish, the 5 loaves, and how he was able to feed a multitude. I think this is your calling, babes. You have been brought onto this earth to feed the multitude, you know, and that's how you reach people. It's through the multitudes, babes. Feed them, girl. And then there you are, slaving over pots, week in, week out, cooking for all these people, not being compensated, thanked, or, you know, rewarded in some way, right? That all your treasures are in heaven. But these people are eating now. They're not eating in heaven, right? The church is benefiting from your labor now, not in heaven. So why isn't there some sort of, not necessarily remuneration, right? But some sort of system where the church gives back to you too, and isn't just expecting to take and take and take and take and take from its congregation. But yeah, don't give up on the music. If that is something that you loved, if that is something that you enjoyed, then don't give up. Don't give up. You might need some time to heal and to come to terms with this new life that you've created for yourself. I think going onto campus is a great idea, because then you get to meet different people, just be in a completely different environment and allow other influences to sort of present themselves. And then you can decide for yourself whether it's something you want to participate in or not. But yeah, to whoever wrote this post, I wish you all the luck and all the love and all the support in your future endeavors. I'm really happy for you in the sense that you are able to break free, and I'm glad that you have parents who support you and who can stand up for you, because I think a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people struggle with finding any type of support, and that's where then, people become at risk because they feel rejected by all these systems of support that they used to have. All the communities that they may have been a part of, they have now become a pariah, and that leaves them exposed. So yeah, shout out to you, and keep doing you, boo. So yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode, and I will see you next week. Bye. Damn. We are over the 20-minute mark. I mean, we're well over the 20-minute mark, but, it was fun while it lasted, even if it was just one episode. It was fun while it lasted. I think this week's episode was a bit of a complicated one, not that complicated, but the issues run deep. So I had a lot to say, maybe because I just have a lot of unresolved issues of my own regarding the church, but that's neither here nor there. I hope you enjoyed the episode nonetheless. And again, send your voice notes, send your comments, put your vote in the poll, all of that stuff. I want to hear it all. Let's talk, let's chat, let's communicate. Remember, like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'd really like to have at least 10 followers. That's my goal right now. 10 followers, 10 subscribers, I think is the correct word. Yeah, and I know I'm going to have to work for those 10 subscribers, and I will. I'm about to go and leave soon, so I'll have more time to improve the quality of the editing, the quality of all the work that I'm producing. Yeah, I know I started off this voice note not wanting to be held back by the need and desire to be perfect, but I think, now it's time for me to get my A into G and stop putting out some quality shit. So yeah, let me just go fight with my neighbors real quick, and hopefully that'll contribute to the quality. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Be kind to each other. Bye.